Stop the tape. Dr. Phil's hand shot up toward the cameras. The entire studio froze. Bring the kids backstage. Now. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of someone who had just heard something that changed everything. Behind him, a mother sat clutching a manila envelope, tears streaming down her face. Her 2 teenage children stared at her from their seats, confusion turning to fear. No one in that studio, not the crew, not the audience, not even the producers, knew what was about to happen next. What Dr. Phil did in the next 60 seconds would break every protocol of television production and change 3 lives forever. 48 hours earlier, Sarah Mitchell had walked into the Dr. Phil studio with a secret she'd carried for 15 years. At 42, she looked older than her age, the kind of tired that comes from sleepless nights and decisions that haunt you. Her children, 16-year-old Emma and 14-year-old Jake, sat nervously in the green room, told only that their mother needed help with family communication issues. The segment was supposed to be straightforward, mother and teenagers struggling to connect, typical family therapy, 30 minutes of airtime. The producers had done their pre-interviews. Sarah had been vague but cooperative. "I just need help telling my kids something important," she'd said. They'd assumed it was about a boyfriend, maybe financial troubles, perhaps a health diagnosis. They had no idea Sarah was carrying a secret that would stop production entirely. Dr. Phil started the session the way he always did, direct but gentle. "Sarah, tell me why you're here today." Sarah looked at her kids sitting across from her on the stage. Emma, with her mother's eyes and cautious smile. Jake, lanky and awkward, already taller than both of them. Good kids. Kids who trusted her. "I need to tell them something I should have told them a long time ago." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. They gripped the envelope like a lifeline. Dr. Phil leaned forward. "And what's stopping you?" "Fear." The word came out as a whisper. "Fear that they'll hate me. Fear that I'll lose them." Emma spoke up from her seat. "Mom, whatever it is, we can handle it. Just tell us." But Emma had no idea that what her mother was about to say would rewrite everything she thought she knew about her life. Sarah took a breath. Dr. Phil watched her carefully. He'd seen that look before, the moment when someone stands at the edge of truth, terrified of the fall. "Emma, Jake, the man you know as your father." Her voice cracked. "He's not your biological father." The silence was instant and absolute. Emma's face went pale. Jake stopped moving entirely, frozen mid-breath. "What?" Emma's voice was barely audible. "Your real father." Sarah pulled a photograph from the envelope with shaking hands. "His name was David. He died in a car accident 3 months before you were born, Emma. And 2 years later, before Jake was born." Dr. Phil's expression shifted. This wasn't just a paternity revelation. This was something deeper. "Sarah. Dr. Phil's voice was calm but firm. "Are you saying both children had the same biological father, and he passed before either of them was born?" Sarah nodded, tears streaming. "David and I were together for 4 years. We were going to get married. When he died, I was 3 months pregnant with Emma. I was 26, terrified, alone. My friend Richard, the man they know as Dad, he stepped up. He married me, gave Emma his name, raised her as his own." "And Jake?" Dr. Phil asked gently. "I was pregnant when David died. I didn't know it yet. Found out 6 weeks later. Richard never questioned it. He raised both of them as his. He is their father in every way that matters. But biologically..." She looked at her children, her face crumbling. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I lied to you for 15 years. The studio audience sat in stunned silence. Several people were crying. But Dr. Phil wasn't looking at the audience. He was watching the kids. Emma was shaking, her arms wrapped around herself. Jake's face had gone from confusion to something harder, betrayal. "Does Dad know?" Emma asked, her voice breaking on the word Dad. "Yes." Sarah nodded. "He's always known. We agreed to tell you when you were older, but then years passed and it never felt like the right time, and then it felt like too much time had passed and... Stop. It was Jake who spoke, his voice cold in a way that made Sarah flinch. You lied to us for our entire lives. Both of you. Dr. Phil stood up. The cameras kept rolling, but everyone could sense something shifting in the room. Sarah, you said you have something else in that envelope. Sarah's face went even paler. Dr. Phil had seen it during the commercial break. She'd shown him privately, asked him if she should reveal it. He'd told her the choice was hers, but secrets had a way of destroying families from the inside out. With trembling hands, Sarah pulled out 2 letters, the paper aged and folded many times. David wrote these the day before the accident. One for you, Emma, and one for you, Jake. He didn't know about Jake yet, but he had a feeling we'd have more kids. He wanted you both to know. Her voice broke completely. He wanted you to know how much he loved you, even though he'd never get to meet you. That's when it happened. Dr. Phil held up his hand toward the cameras. Stop the tape. The entire studio went silent. Producers looked at each other in confusion. Dr. Phil never stopped filming mid-segment. Never. He walked over to Sarah, placed a hand on her shoulder, then turned to the kids. His voice was quiet but carried to every corner of the studio. Emma. Jake. Come here, please. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. They hesitated, then walked slowly toward their mother. Dr. Phil positioned them facing each other, creating an intimate circle in the middle of the stage. I'm stopping this right here, Dr. Phil said, his voice addressing the studio audience now. Because what's about to happen isn't entertainment. This is a family meeting the father they never knew through his own words. This moment is theirs, not ours. He turned to the cameras. Cut transmission to the monitors. The screens went dark. The audience could still see, but this moment wouldn't be recorded for broadcast. Dr. Phil looked at Sarah. Give them the letters. With shaking hands, Sarah held them out. Emma took hers first, then Jake. Neither opened them immediately. Your mother made mistakes, Dr. Phil said quietly. She made choices out of fear and love and pain, and yes, some of those choices hurt you. But before you read those letters, I need you to understand something. He pointed to Sarah. This woman carried the weight of losing the love of her life while pregnant and alone. She chose to give you stability over truth. She chose to let the man who raised you be your father without the shadow of biology hanging over every moment. Was she right? That's for you to decide. But she wasn't malicious. She was terrified. Emma's hands were shaking as she unfolded her letter. Jake watched her, then slowly opened his. The studio was so quiet you could hear the rustle of old paper. Dr. Phil stepped back, giving them space. Emma read first, her eyes moving across the handwritten words. Tears began falling before she was halfway through. She pressed the letter to her chest, her whole body shaking with sobs. Jake's face was harder to read. He read slowly, his jaw clenched, but by the end, his eyes were wet too. He said, Emma's voice broke. He said he hoped I'd have Mom's kindness and his stubborn streak. He said he hoped I'd know I was loved every single day, even if he couldn't be there to say it. Jake's voice was rough. He said he hoped I'd take care of my sister. That being a big brother was the most important job I'd ever have, even if... His voice cracked. Even if he wasn't there to teach me how. Sarah broke. Not the quiet tears from before, deep, wrenching sobs that shook her entire frame. I'm sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry. I should have told you. I should have. Emma moved first. She crossed the small space and wrapped her arms around her mother. Jake stood frozen for a moment longer, the letter still in his hand, his face a war between anger and grief. Then he joined them. Dr. Phil turned away, giving them privacy. The audience was crying openly now. Several crew members wiped their eyes. After a long moment, Dr. Phil spoke quietly. Sarah, when your children are ready, we're going to step backstage. I have some people I want you all to meet. Sarah looked up, confused. What? During the break, I made some calls. There's a family therapist I trust who specializes in grief and identity. She's already on her way. And, he paused. I also contacted David's parents. Your in-laws who you lost touch with after the accident. They're willing to meet with you and the kids if you're ready. Sarah's eyes went wide. David's parents? But I thought. They've wanted to meet their grandchildren for 15 years, Dr. Phil said gently. They respected your choice to move on, to build a new life. But they never stopped hoping. The weight of that statement settled over the stage. Emma looked at her mother with new eyes. We have grandparents? Emma's voice was small, childlike. You do, Dr. Phil confirmed. And they have photos, stories, and 15 years of love they've been waiting to share. He looked at Jake. You asked earlier if your dad, Richard, knows about today. He does. I spoke with him this morning. He's waiting for you at home. He wanted you to know that nothing changes for him. He's your father. He'll always be your father. But he also wants you to know David, to have that piece of yourselves you didn't know was missing. Jake's face crumbled. The anger that had held him together dissolved into grief for a man he never knew and gratitude for the one who raised him. Dr. Phil gestured toward the stage exit. Let's go. Cameras stay here. This moment is yours. As they walked off stage, Emma turned back to Dr. Phil. Thank you, she whispered. Dr. Phil nodded, then addressed the studio audience for the first time since stopping the tape. What you just witnessed is why I do this work. Not for the cameras, not for the ratings. For moments like this, when a family that was breaking apart finds a way to begin healing. He picked up the envelope Sarah had left on her chair. There was still one more item inside. He pulled out a hospital bracelet, faded and small. David's name was printed on it, along with the date of the accident. Sarah kept this for 15 years. Dr. Phil said quietly, holding it up for the audience to see. Carried it in that envelope everywhere she went. She never forgot him. She never let her children's father disappear. She just didn't know how to make him present. He placed it carefully back in the envelope. And now, she doesn't have to carry it alone anymore. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Not the polite applause of a television audience, the raw, emotional release of people who had witnessed something real. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Later that evening, after the therapy session, after meeting David's parents, after hours of tears and stories and tentative steps toward healing, Sarah sat with her children in a quiet room backstage. Emma held the photograph of David. Young, smiling, one hand on Sarah's pregnant belly. He looks like Jake, she said softly. Jake nodded. Same nose. And your eyes? Sarah added, touching Jake's face gently. You have his eyes. Tell us about him, Emma asked. Everything. Start from the beginning. And for the first time in 15 years, Sarah did. 3 months later, Dr. Phil received a letter. It was from Emma. Dr. Phil. I wanted you to know that we're okay. It's not perfect. There are hard days when I'm angry at Mom for waiting so long, days when Jake still struggles with feeling like our whole childhood was a lie. But we're talking now. Really talking. Meeting our grandparents changed everything. They had boxes of things Dad saved, ticket stubs from his first date with Mom, a journal where he wrote letters to me before I was born, even a video of him talking about becoming a father. He was so excited. So scared. So human. I understand Mom better now. She wasn't trying to erase him. She was trying to survive losing him. And Richard, Dad, he's been amazing. He sat us down and told us that biology doesn't make a father. Showing up every day does. He said loving us was never about obligation. It was always about choice. We're a family. A complicated, messy, healing family. Thank you for stopping the cameras that day. Thank you for making it about us, not about the show. That moment, reading Dad's letters while you all stepped back. That's when I started to forgive Mom. Because I saw her as a person, not just a mother who lied. Some secrets destroy families. But maybe some secrets, when finally told, can remake them into something stronger. With gratitude, Emma. Dr. Phil kept that letter in his desk drawer. On difficult production days, when the cynicism of television threatened to overshadow the purpose, he'd read it again. Because that's why he did this work. Not for the viral moments, or the dramatic reveals. For the families who walked into his studio broken and left with a map toward healing. Sarah's secret had nearly destroyed her family. But in the end, it was the telling of it, in the right space, with the right support, at the right moment, that gave them all a chance to become whole again. The envelope, the letters, the hospital bracelet, these weren't just objects. They were bridges between a man who never got to be a father and the children who never got to know him. And sometimes, that's what healing looks like, building bridges across grief until love can cross again. Dr. Phil McGraw had stopped filming that day not because the moment was too private for television, but because it was too important to be reduced to entertainment. Some stories aren't meant to be watched. They're meant to be witnessed. And in that quiet backstage room, with cameras off and hearts open, a family found their way back to each other. Not because the truth was easy, but because finally it was told.